let's
Yes.
go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to chat with you as one of our pre-postnatal exercise specialists, instructors. So let's go ahead and start with, do we just share a little bit more about you and your background and as an instructor, like what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I began with movement at the age of 4 through dance, and I've been dancing ever since I was 4. I went to UCI for dance, and it was at UCI that I discovered Pilates. And I kind of fell in love with Pilates, started teaching Pilates. I think it was around 2013-ish. And I just loved what Pilates does for our bodies. And so I started teaching at a few different studios up in Irvine. And then I moved back down to San Diego after college, and I was teaching at a Stop Pilates studio. There's my little one. Stop Pilates studio, on and off for the past 5 years. And I absolutely, like, I love Pilates so much, but it was when I found your program, the pre and post, or the pre and postnatal exercise specialist program, that like my world opened up even more to the benefits of like fascially focused training, which is what you specialize in, really, which is what you're so good at teaching. So I had my first when I was 25, and I kind of trained myself through that pregnancy, rehabbed myself, and I felt good. Like, I felt strong. No diastasis, no pelvic floor issues, everything was good. But then when I wanted to get pregnant with my second, really so loud, at 28, I realized I really wanted to specialize in pre and postnatal training. So that's when I found you. And I found a lot of different programs, but honestly, yours was the only one that seemed like the best, like research based. And I loved your background as well, and Stop Pilates and just all of your like college education and everything. So I went with your program, and I kid you not, the connections that I felt during my, like, while I was going through your pre and postnatal exercise specialist program, I was learning all that information from you, but then I was doing it myself. And so the connections that I felt were so much different than when I just trained myself the first time, because of all the fascially focused training. And it's just such a different way of thinking about training, and such a different way of actually training. So I've actually begun training my clients and my moms in this way as well. And I've been able to I've had three women go through, sorry, my little one. I worked 3 women through their pregnancies, and now we're into postpartum, and they all had really great pregnancies, births, and now we're starting at that 6-week period. We're going to be starting rehabbing again. And I went through your core rehab program too. And I was talking to Jen, and I was telling her that with all of my dance background experience, and I was an aerialist too,
oh wow,
for a bit, and with all of that experience that I had, I feel stronger and more connected now after having 2 babies than I did when I was 24 and like in the prime of my dancing career, you know? And so I was telling her how amazed I am that this stuff really works. Like, of course, and I know it works because I'm an instructor too, and I see it on my clients. But when you get to experience it yourself, and when you get to experience it when you're a little bit older, which I'm not saying I'm old, but 29 is a big difference from 24. And after 2 babies, I just never thought I could be stronger and more well-connected after 2 babies than than, at 24 and no babies. So yeah, I just credit that mainly to you. So thank you so much for all of your programs and training and whatnot.
Well, thank you, Kaylyn. And you said so many amazing things. I'm like, I have so many directions we could go. So I love that you said, right, after 2 babies, you feel stronger, more connected, right? And that's why I love the foundations of what we're teaching, right, is really how to connect everything together. And if we could start to learn this and through those teenage years, just think of how much less injuries women, girls would suffer from. Like, I've got a teenager now, so I'm starting to see what's going on in that realm. I mean, obviously I was there at one point, but to see basically, right, that like, all this stuff we're learning today, I'd always encourage all my moms that do any of my programs. I'm like, if you have teenage daughters or even boys too, right? Start teaching them some small elements, or even younger, it's just, we have to just really like piecemeal it down, because little kids and body awareness, because I've worked with my 3 kids too, but there's like little pieces you can kind of incorporate, and, so because it's just that body awareness piece. But anyway, I love that you have a dance background, because a lot of Pilates instructors do. I'm actually a rarity that I dance a little bit, but I don't really have a big dance background.
Okay.
But I feel like Pilates is something that kind of like saved me, because it was gentle and fluid. It was really my first taste of fascial training. We just didn't know it, essentially. It was not taught that way. So now when we can connect the dots and we understand fascia and all of that, then it's like, oh, then everything you do in Pilates it amplifies it.
Yeah. And
cool, right?
It makes it make sense in a totally different way. And it's like you said, it connects the dots. It's like it opens. I just felt like after going through your programs, I felt like it was that missing piece that I didn't learn. Because in 2013, when I was going through my training, it was a year-long extensive training, but that fascially focused training was not a part of it. So it's just kind of like that key that unlocks, I think, just so much potential within our bodies. And I'm seeing that on my clients, and I'm seeing that with the moms that I've been working with, and I saw it on myself. And I have a quick story, because I know you talked about little ones.
I love stories.
Yeah,
go for it.
I recently had the pleasure of teaching at a dance intensive in Illinois. I'm in San Diego right now, but I took my youngest, my 5-month-old, with me to this dance conference for kids ages 8 to 15. And so I was able to work with young dancers, and I was so excited to work with them. I was teaching a Pilates for dancers and a couple other conditioning and dance classes. But I was so excited to work with them, because I wanted to start introducing these fascially focused exercises into their like conditioning warm up and training program. And so when I was there and I was teaching them, Jen advised me to, because I was talking to her a little bit about it, and I said, how do I simplify this in a way, because I want to teach some of the core rehab principles and a lot of the things. And I said, how do I simplify this in a way that like a 10-year-old would understand? And she said, maybe print out some visuals for them so that they can see, when you talk about fascial lines, keep it simple, and when you talk about, muscles of the deep core, keep it very simple, but maybe print out some visuals. So I did that, and I laminated them. And so I had that and passed it around, and they loved it. They had no idea what anything was at all. They had no idea what the core was, no idea what any of this is. So I was able to teach them, because with dancers, especially when they're that young, what we normally do is we get into the studio and we are cold and we stretch. We get into the splits right away, sink down, and they just stay there for like 5 to 10 minutes. Like, honestly, that's what a lot of young dancers do. I did it when I was 4 or 5 and on. So I know this is just common in the studio. We just get in and we stretch. So I was so excited to educate them on fascially focused stretches. And you can stretch, but be lengthened and connected. You can, approach the same stretches that we do to prepare for dance, but approach them in a different way to prevent injury and to warm up properly and to preserve your body, because, you know, we're not going to be dancing forever, and our bodies have, you know, a certain timeline where we're only able to dance a certain, you know, length of time. But if we are training our bodies properly, if we are connecting while we are stretching and really thinking mindfully about each movement, then we are able to preserve our dancing ability and preserve our bodies. Even if we don't want to go into dance professionally, we're able to preserve our bodies, you know, for the rest of our lives. And so it was really, really neat. And by the end of the intensive, I was asking them questions, and I saw they were lengthening more. They were just more excited about movement. And my friend that I was teaching with back there, who is also from San Diego, and I hadn't seen in a while, she mentioned, and I didn't even say anything, but she mentioned that I looked stronger than I even did before I had my first baby. And she said that I was moving in a way that was just a little bit more connected and different. And I didn't say any of this to her beforehand. Like, I didn't tell her about the, you know, the programs that I went through you or anything, but she just mentioned, like, you just seem like more connected. And I danced with her like a while ago. So for her to say that now, post 2 babies, as opposed to like beforehand, it was amazing. And I was just so excited. So.
Well, I love that, Kaylyn. So I want to have you share, like, what is like the number one like thing that you now teach your clients, whether it's, and it could be something specifically for pregnancy or postpartum, or something that really resonated with you, that you feel has really been, there's so many pieces, right? It's hard to pick one thing, but what's like one takeaway that you could share with everybody listening?
So I think the most simple yet effective, one of the most simple yet effective cues that you say over and over and over again is that lengthen tall through the top of your head. And when I say that to people, so much changes. Like, it's amazing how just that simple cue and connecting from the pelvic floor, zipping up and lengthening tall, that one I've seen, it just resonates with people and it connects and people do it. And there's a difference between lengthen and lengthen tall through the top of your head. There's a difference between, engage your abs versus connect from the pelvic floor, zip up, a little low belly, and then lengthen tall with that rib connection. Like, there's just such a difference, and people get it when you cue it like that. So I know there are so many things that if I had to pick one, that very simple cue resonates with my moms, resonates with my non-pregnant clients, my female clients, my male clients. Like, it resonates with pretty much everybody. So yeah, and that pelvic floor connection piece too. Well, people don't know what that is.
Bringing in the conversation of pelvic floor, and it's amazes to me, right? I mean, women of all ages, most, unless they have an anatomy background, or like even you. So question for you, even so prior to taking my training and knowing you had a good background in movement, right?
Yeah.
Did you know what your pelvic floor like really was and entailed before?
So yes and no. Yes, I knew that it was part of the deep core, but I did not know how to, the way that you cue from the pubic bone to tailbone, sits bone to sits bone, and like the way that you cue all of that, that opened up a totally different way of engaging my pelvic floor. Because before all of that, I was doing Kegels. I was doing like pelvic floor. Okay, a Kegel. I know what my pelvic floor looks like, kind of, the muscles, and I'm engaging, and let's move on. But the way that you break it down and how to engage through the pelvic floor, it's changed things. Like, it actually, I didn't know that piece, and I hate saying that. I hated
Okay.
doing that.
Kaylyn, I'm glad you brought this up, right? I love this, our natural free flowing conversation, because we didn't have a huge plan before hopping on, but I knew we'd have a lot to talk about. So you mentioned, right, having previously done the Kegel way. So I want your perspective on this, because I'm always the one teaching all this, but it's always good to hear a different perspective. So what was the biggest difference that you noticed once you stopped doing, quote, Kegels, and actually started addressing your pelvic floor the way that you learned from all of our teachings?
Yeah. So two things, the relaxation element of the pelvic floor, like learning how to relax the pelvic floor, but then also re-engage. That I never did that. I was just, squeeze, 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 right? I didn't think of the relaxation element. So, and also, engaging, I didn't realize how big, like I knew how big my pelvic floor was visually, but I'd never felt that ever. I never felt all those connections. And so being able to feel all of that musculature that I thought I had control of, which I didn't have any incontinence or anything like that. So I didn't have any pelvic floor issues, but I feel the ability to, I feel like I have the ability to engage those muscles and also relax like I've never had before. And just having that ability of like, all right, I'm going to engage through these muscles before I lift my son, or I'm going to, in the middle of the night, like your voice is in my head when I'm about to pick up my kid out of his crib, and I'm like engaging correctly through that pelvic floor and then lengthening, and then I pick him up with good posture. It has seriously made all the difference, because I had, after my first, everything was fine in terms of like my body healed, it was fine, but I had back pain. But this time around, I haven't had any back pain, like none. And
I love that.
Yeah,
I love hearing
and that's
that.
just so huge, because when you aren't living in pain, you're able to be there for your family and be there for your kids in a more full way. And it just, like, my body's not in pain. And it was a little bit the first time, and I didn't realize, like, I would bend over to brush my teeth and that would kill my back. But ever since learning how to engage the pelvic floor, zip it up, lengthen tall, and then move, that is seriously, it's like changed everything in my body. And when I teach my clients, like, it's like they when they get it and it clicks, like their bodies don't hurt as much either. And I've seen that. So yeah, I don't know if
I love it. No, I do. I love it, because like, I talk about that a lot, right? I'm like always telling women, don't do Kegels. And I always get this, well, why not? And I have to explain to them, it's like, okay, well, it's potentially actually causing more harm than good. We're not effectively strengthening the pelvic floor. And it's a big foundational piece. And it's hard to understand, right? So in the beginning, it's like, you just have to embrace a new way of learning how to move and about your body. And especially for people that don't have a movement background, so you have a movement background. So things clicked pretty quickly for you, which is awesome. Right.
Perhaps my pelvic floor was too tight before, like it wasn't able to relax. So it was causing other issues. And
I would believe that, especially as dancer backgrounds. Well, I would say, here's actually what I put in that category. Anyone who has a fitness background, dance is one of those, gymnastics is definitely one of those. We tend to have a really tight pelvises, pelvic floors. We've been taught to just grip and squeeze. I mean, I'm finding that time and time again in core rehab. I rarely have a woman that comes into core rehab that I know of, that I have conversations with, who I know, like, her pelvic floor is actually too weak, right? Because we get women that come in and have been to pelvic floor physical therapists. And the notion is that, oh, well, our pelvic, if you have pelvic floor problems, that your pelvic floor is too weak. And that may be the case for some women. I find that to possibly be women of older age. But I would say, I don't know what the cutoff is there. I don't know. I haven't done research on this, but I would say definitely women in, 20s, 30s, 40s for sure. Potentially even above that. actually too tight. Because when I get women that come to me and they're asking about core rehab and could it help them, they actually have too tight of a pelvic floor if they've been to a pelvic floor, physical therapist. And I'm like, absolutely. Like it doesn't matter, right? But it's so common and we don't talk enough about being too tight and too restricted. And with fascia, as you've learned from me, fascia likes gentle. And so if we're tight and restricted all the time, it's actually restricting our fascia to function effectively. So awesome. It's so great to chat with you, Kaylyn. So, okay, last question I have for you. And then if you want to add any other tidbit that you really want to share, I'm open to that. But for those listening that are like, okay, Kaylyn, I hear you talking about this postnatal exercise specialist course. You have a Pilates background. But I know we have a lot of people in our audience that are moms and they're like, well, I'm really interested in this, or maybe they've done the Knocked Up Fitness prenatal training. Sometimes we get that. And then she's like, I want to learn more, but I don't know. Should I take the exercise specialist course? So can you speak to it a little bit from your experience as like why women, whether they're an instructor or not, could benefit from the education in there?
Right. Yeah. And you just said it. It was a huge educational piece for me. And so I wanted to go through that program because I wanted to learn how to train moms more effectively, because as a Pilates instructor, I had a little bit of knowledge of that special population, but I wanted to dive deeper into that education. But I also wanted that just for me. I wanted to learn more about my body in a really deep way. I wanted to have more kids, and I still might want to have more kids. But having that education just changes the way, it just changes everything. Honestly, it changes the way you function, and it changes the way that when you're pregnant, you're forming a life. And so when you are exercising and you're getting all these great benefits, you're changing your future, the health of your future kid. And then it affects labor and delivery. And I would encourage anyone who wants to have the utmost health for themselves, but also their baby. I would encourage any woman, whether they're an instructor or not, to go through that program for the education piece and for the health benefits for you and your baby and then your family. Honestly, it's like my whole family has benefited from the fact that I've gone through your programs. Like, I'm a better mom because of that. So anyone who just like wants to maximize their potential as a mom, like, it sounds really dramatic, but honestly, it's revolutionized the way that I teach, the way that I function, and the way that I just like pick up my kids and pick up things around the house and just think about my body. So it's, I also went through the Knocked Up Fitness program when I was pregnant too. So I was doing your pre and postnatal specialist program and the Knocked Up Fitness program. So it was like, give me all the education. Like, I want to learn it all. So I went through those programs, and then I did your core rehab program afterwards. And I cannot speak highly enough about you, about the programs, and just about all the education, because it's like, it actually works. It works. And that's the most exciting thing.
Kaylyn, thank you. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful that you were willing to come on and just chat with me and share your experience. So I want to make sure that we share you some love too. So do you have an Instagram that people could reach out to you? And I know you said you're in San Diego and you work with clients. So just where could someone contact you? Is Instagram the best?
Yes. I was taking a social media break for the last month and a half, but I will probably. Okay. But yeah, I'm Kaylyn. I'm at Kaylyn Redel, just KAYLYNREDEL, or I'm on Facebook, I guess. And yes, I'm subbing at a studio that I love, Pure Power Pilates and Fitness in San Diego. I was teaching there more full-time or part-time, but with my two little ones, it's been hard to get back in. So I'm subbing there. And I've been doing a lot of virtual clients actually.
Oh, you
So
are? Okay, great.
I'm doing
Awesome.
a lot of virtual sessions. I have I have a mom in Hawaii that I train. I've got a few moms all over. So that's
Awesome. Well, Kaylyn, that's wonderful. Yeah, I will be sure to link. And if you have an email and you want to give it to
yes.
me, maybe not put it out publicly, in case I have anyone that reaches out to me. Ladies, you can always find me on Instagram at Erica Zeal, and I can help connect. Because I don't do one-on-one training online anymore because I put my energy into creating programs to reach more instructors, more women, more moms, because it's changing so many lives, and I'm so grateful and feel so blessed that I get to be here teaching all of this. So Kaylyn, thank you again so much. And yeah, ladies, just reach out to either one of us if any of you have any questions. So thanks, Kaylyn.
Thank you.